Okay. So the first question was, what did you find surprising about the sexual behaviors, fantasies, beliefs from the culture that you've explored? I said one of the first things that stood out to me was that mistresses were more important than girlfriends. And it just was weird to me, like how they explained that mistresses and wives were like equally important and that a girlfriend is at the bottom. And so that was just kind of surprising to me, I guess. And then also that the mistresses and the wives and girlfriends were like all aware of each other and they were okay with it. I thought that was weird. Or just
Super
it
weird.
surprised me.
I thought it was weird too.
Yeah.
We're all very okay
Yeah.
with it.
Yeah. They're like, oh, it's fine. So the next thing that surprised me was that the culture revolves around the man, I guess. So I think that like in modern US culture, it's pretty common, at least like heterosexual relationships, for things to be a little bit more equal now, maybe for younger groups. I wouldn't say maybe not for older generations, but I think it's becoming more common, at least for it to be a little bit more equal. Like one girl said that she needs to cook the food that he likes and always be ready whenever he wants to go out. And so I thought that was kind of surprising because I think at least now, more recently, at least in US culture, things have become a bit more like, what do you want? Okay, next time, what do you want? You know, back and forth, at least from what I've experienced. And then the last thing that I put that I said I found interesting was when the host, Christian, was talking to the soccer player. He said he doesn't cheat on his wife because he's poor. But like his wording made it sound like he would if he could. He would if he had money. And like how the rich men can cheat on their wives and their girlfriends and mistresses and all that because they have money and so they can get more girls. So the fact that he said he can't cheat, it was like implying that he kind of wants to, but he just doesn't because he can't get more girls. So those are the things that I put as surprising.
I know, I thought that one too. When the soccer player, he was like, "Oh, I can't cheat because like I can't afford it." I was like, "What?" Like, but and then also like how the women, when they were talking about the beads that they wear around their waist too, to like let the guys know that they're like basically available and like able to like provide and stuff. I thought that was weird. Or like interesting, at least. Very different. And then
all the polygamous. Oh, sorry, Haley.
You're good. You're good. I was basically done.
But yeah, just the whole polygamous situation for like men, you know, I was just pretty interesting to me because girls are supposed to stay loyal while men can have like multiple partners. You know how you're talking about like the wife, mistress, girlfriend, like, and it's like a ranking, you know, and that's just super weird to me. And yeah, the soccer player. I think in this society, girls wants to be, they're used to being taken care of, so that's what they look for in a man, you know. So yeah, the guy was poor, so he couldn't afford to like, you know, care for another girl or whatever. But yeah, I think if he was definitely, you know, wealthy, he definitely would have more partners. Yeah, it was very wild, to be honest. I was completely shocked like throughout the whole film.
I thought it was really interesting too. Sorry, another thing, when the one lady that like owned the fishing boat too, and how like all the men were so scared of her because she was like,
yes.
That was funny.
I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah.
It was like the roles were reversed and they weren't used to that.
Yeah,
it was definitely nice to see that though, just because like, you know, men were like superior there or whatever.
Okay, anyone else want to add anything to that first question? We're good. So the second one was, what are significant differences you see between US cultural behaviors, expectations, and the culture you're exploring? List 3 to 5. The first difference that I said I noticed was how it's just normal for married men to be approaching single women and making moves to pursue them. And I said in US culture, that kind of behavior is definitely not something that's normal, or at least not something, I mean, it's maybe not uncommon, but it's not, I think, normal and like accepted. It's definitely not something that everyone talks about. And it's also for sure considered, like, I think everyone can agree it's probably considered like bad behavior, like you shouldn't be doing that in a marriage. Um, so yeah, I just said that was like the first significant difference. And then the next thing I said was how women are expected to not be able to take care of themselves just so they can find a man to take care of them, not have to worry about money and being able to pay for things themselves, which I feel like has changed a lot. Like maybe back in like the 50s or 60s, that was more of an issue for women, right? But like now that's also why we see more women in school than we do boys, right? Like more girls are going to school and getting college degrees than guys now. Because I think more women are just realizing, at least in US culture, like how important it is to be able to take care of themselves, right? And divorce rates go up and just being able to take care of yourself. That's something different, I think. I've noticed that a lot of the things in Accra was maybe how things were like 50, 60 years ago in the US, like some of the mindsets. And then another thing I said was that, oh, a big difference or something that I just thought was odd, I guess, was how young women are sometimes forced into marriages with older men to like pay off their family's crimes, which
Oh,
I
Yeah,
guess I don't
that
know
was
for
in
sure,
my
but I'm pretty
book.
sure that's illegal here. um,
yeah, that was like the first thing in the video. That was pretty shocking to me because
Yeah,
it's not even fair for the girl, right, to like pay for their family's crime. Like that makes
yeah,
no like sense. That
They're
was
so
yeah,
just
young, It's
no.
like, geez, what are they
yeah,
setting them up for? It's like, why do they have to pay for that? They're so young, they don't really know. But I
mhm.
guess that's just the way they do it. It's crazy.
Yeah. It's such a
yeah,
huge difference. It's literally illegal here.
Yeah, they would get in big trouble here, but it was like normalized there.
Yeah.
yeah. But that was 20 years ago from this film, right?
Yeah, I think that was
That's what they were saying.
Because at the end, she met with one of the girls that
yeah.
was in the film
Yeah,
previously.
And I don't know if she was saying it was still happening or if it's happening less frequently.
yeah. She said it was still happening.
Yeah. That's why at first
Yeah.
I wasn't gonna include it in a difference, because if it was like something that happened in the past, I was gonna include that in the thing that surprised me the most. But the fact that she said
Hmm.
it still happens, that's why I was like, oh, I'll include that in the differences section. Um, and then the last thing that I wrote is that it's not common for women to talk about sex in public or like be open about it, which I think a lot of girls in US culture are like very fine talking about that, at least like among the girls I know. I mean, it's in TV, it's in books, it's in songs, it's magazines, wherever. Like, I think at least females in the US are pretty open about that now. And it's not considered as taboo or something that you can only talk about with your girlfriends behind closed doors, like you can talk about it over whatever, I think. um, so it's like that's another thing where, I think in the past in US culture, that was maybe a big thing to only talk about it privately, maybe with your partner or like with your other girlfriends, right? But now it's like women are pretty open about it. And they don't keep it as secretive anymore. That was the last difference I mentioned. I don't know if I didn't cover anything that
Again,
you guys didn't.
I think you
I
covered all of
basically
it, to be
said the
honest.
same thing. Yeah,
Okay.
I said how like
Yeah.
infidelity was basically encouraged for men,
Yeah.
but for women, like it was not allowed. But men were like, it was like, okay, you're meant basically to have a wife or multiple wives, a mistress, a girlfriend.
And if you don't, what are you doing?
Yeah, basically.
Well, I
And
don't
like
think
it
that much
was
more.
wild to me how all the women like were so okay with it, but they were saying it's like it's culture, like that's our normal, that's what we're used to.
Mhm.
So that's definitely not something the US is okay with usually.
Yeah.
Um,
At
and
least
then,
it's not something that we are accepting of.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. It's like it definitely happens, but usually women are not okay with that.
Anything else? Okay.
I feel like you touched base on all of them.
Sorry, guys. You can cut me off.
Okay.
But
I'm
yeah,
just
I
going
mean,
down my list. If anyone else wants to start the next one, you guys can. If I'm covering too much.
what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, but just they were just, overly dependent. It's not something that we see here now. Like you said, like a lot of more women are going to school, getting on their education. You know, they don't really need a man to like live, right? But in this culture, we like see the exact opposite.
Yeah. All right. So the third question, what are significant similarities you see between US cultural behaviors, expectations, and the culture you're exploring? List 3 to 5. So Haley, I actually thought that it was interesting that you said the thing about the jewelry, because I put this in the similarities part, because not that I guess it's the exact same, but how girls in the US will, wear like lingerie or certain things like in bed, right? Because they said that the jewelry was something that like the guy would look at or like kind of play with, right? While they're
Yeah.
and so I was like, oh, that's kind of similar to like if like in the US how girls will wear like lingerie, right? To
True. I hadn't have thought of that.
yeah, so that was like one of the I guess it's not the exact same thing, but it's similar in the sense of like in both cultures, females are doing extra things, going above and beyond, I guess, to like just put on something random that is like intriguing for the guy to look at and like play with or something. Um, and then another similarity I said was that the women want to please the men, right? So like the goal is to do things that make your guy happy. And I think in both cultures, like females in the US will really focus on doing extra things for the guy, so like buying lingerie, spending extra money to keep up with their appearance, making dinner that they want, or making sure that dinner's ready by the time they come home from work or whatever, right? And that's same with women in Accra, it seemed like. And then the next thing I said was that both women in Accra and US culture are often broken up with and not forgiven if they cheat on their partners, right? So like if a female were to cheat on their husband, then the guy is just going to drop her instantly, and probably call her names and like tell all of his friends bad things. But then the girl will give the guy a second chance a lot of the time or be okay with it and be like, oh, it's okay. Like, I know you didn't mean it and like forgive him, right? But like in both cultures, I think guys are less forgiving of the girls.
Yeah,
And
one thing I want to add on that was
go ahead.
in the video, I think in the video it said, if women are caught cheating, right, the church will like order a divorce or whatever. But when men are caught cheating, they only need to apologize and repent for what they've done. And you can just see the double standards there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then the last thing that I said was that it seems like women in both cultures maybe do more work, like household work. It's just more common for females to do cooking and cleaning and like taking care of things in the house while the man goes out and makes money and the female's just trying to do things to please the man, I guess.
Right.
That was the last similarity I mentioned.
I basically said the same thing again. Another thing I had said too was how, like, again, with the women, like with the fishing boat and stuff in the US, also, like, when women are really highly educated and like do well for themselves, men tend to get intimidated by them.
Mm-hmm.
So I said that was another common similarity.
Yeah, that's good.
For the beads, did they say that they wear that publicly? Like, do they show it in public, or was that just like in private?
I think they wear it like underneath their
Yeah, I think they wear it
jeans
underneath.
or
Underneath?
like
Okay, I
Because
thought
when
they
they
would
were
like kind of
talking about it,
show a little.
the women like kind of pulled it out like of her
yeah, she
pants.
showed her, like pulled it out.
Okay, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like here too, like I definitely see like some fashion where like women would have like their lingerie or kind of like a little revealing, right? Like they, I don't know, they could be
Mhm.
wearing like a crop top or something and like just pants, right? And then they would have like part of that lining kind of showing on their like hip, right? No, maybe, I don't know.
Well, and now it's
I
like
feel
the
like I
style
definitely seen
too to
that.
wear like lingerie, like those body suits and stuff that look like
Yeah,
lingerie as like normal tops too.
Yeah,
yeah. I was gonna
That's what
say,
right,
I think
yeah.
Victoria's Secret for a while was like marketing lingerie as like outerwear, pretty much. Like,
Yeah.
oh, just put a blazer over it and you could wear it to work.
Yeah, and like
Uh,
wearing the lacy bralettes like under a
yeah,
crop top, so like when you raise your arm, like it shows.
yeah, kind of like have it peeking out on the side.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's another good point. Yeah. Anything else? Okay. So the next question was, do you think the host is ethnocentric and or judgmental in her questioning? If so, how? Provide concrete examples. I said sometimes. I said she was somewhat rude in her responses. Like when the actress at the very beginning was telling her about how she's sleeping with a man because he can afford to pay for her rent. And he was okay with doing this, right? The host, she kind of like rolled her eyes and scoffed at her. And I was like, well, I mean, just because it's different for her doesn't mean it's, I guess, bad, you know, it's just a different lifestyle that maybe she doesn't see fit for herself or her friends or family members, right? But and then another time she said, what was it? She said, what did I write? She said she just, oh, she constantly was like disagreeing with people and then trying to kind of make it sound like what they were doing was wrong. I think, in my opinion, it seemed like she was kind of making it seem like people were wrong or what they were doing was wrong, and she was kind of judging their situations. Um, and I just think that the way that she went about certain things seemed a little rude. Like when another woman was explaining how you need to know how to cook in order to please your man. She like gave a thumbs down and laughed at her. And
Yeah, I
that's
do
kind of
remember that.
rude.
Mm,
So
yeah.
those are the things that I noticed that were kind of in
Yeah,
judgmental.
I didn't write any examples, but I definitely like sense the tone in her where it's just like, I don't want to say constantly judging, because you know she like grew up in Western culture. She like has her own like, you know, rights and wrongs, right, from
Mhm.
her like um cultural influence. And here in, what's this place called, Accra? Yeah, Accra. um they think that their culture is right, and you know they know what's right and wrong, so it's kind of like
No one really knows what's really right or wrong.
Yeah.
right,
It's
exactly, unless you
that's
kind
what
of
they
like see
know.
both cultures and experience both cultures, like maybe you can kind of like differentiate what's like what could be better for you and not. But in her reality, that's right, that's okay to do, that's the norm, you know. And I don't think she was kind of like respecting that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was definitely a judgmental tone behind a lot of it, which like I can understand because she's not used to that kind of thing, like being from the
Right.
US, but to them that is normal. That's all they know.
Yeah. The things that she did agree with, she always seemed like really happy about it. And then the second she heard something that she didn't agree with, she was like, oh no, that's, and she like thumbs down and everything. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
you don't need to go that far in disagreeing with them, like laughing at them. Um, and then another part to that question was what would have been a better response from her? And so I said, you know, maybe don't laugh, maybe don't roll your eyes, don't scoff at them. Instead of, you know, keep a neutral face, not something overly judgmental and with too much of a reaction. And then instead of asking things that sort of make them look like they're wrong, maybe ask questions that just follow up with what they were saying, and so that they can expand on what they were telling her, you know? That's just what I said.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think she should have really like acknowledged what they were saying. For example, be like, okay, yeah, I see, or like, yeah, I understand, but what about this? You know, she just kind of
It's
like, no,
definitely
that's wrong.
judgmental.
yeah,
Kind
he's
of,
kind of
yeah,
close-minded. Would just shut it down and
yeah,
be
Love
like,
the
that's
way or
not
the
right.
highway.
Like,
Jessica, what was that?
I said she was definitely judgmental.
Yeah.
She was like, oh, it's my way or the highway. Like, whatever, you know, like it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
yeah,
The culture they live in, right? There's sometimes they're close-minded. I mean, I know here in the US, I know sometimes we're close-minded, right? When we hear different things from like different cultures. Like, yeah, it's because we don't live it and we don't really know, right? So it's like, oh, well, this is how I do certain things, and this is why I do certain things. So yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. And then the last part to that question was, how do her responses reflect Western morality? So I think we kind of explained that, but I'll just read what I wrote. I said her responses were reflective of Western morality because she disagreed. I don't know if you guys can hear me. I live downtown, sorry. If you guys can hear that. But she disagreed with a lot of the things that seemed unfamiliar to her. And she was only supportive of and showed positive acknowledgement of things that she felt like was comfortable to her, you know. So she would nod her head and smile when it was something that was similar to US culture, and then laugh and roll her eyes when it was something different. So I think she was just very expressive with her reactions, and it was very clear what she didn't agree with and what she did agree with. And the things that she did agree with were nothing that was it was only things that were pretty much similar to also US culture, you know. So that's what I said.
I agree.
And so then the last, or actually two more questions. What else would you like to know about the sexual culture you've explored, and anything that the host left out? I kind of wanted to know about how women feel about monogamous relationships. Like, if they're, I guess they seem fine with how things are, but do they prefer that? Like, would they prefer something monogamous, or would they prefer just for things to stay the way that they are? And if they genuinely feel like they're making strong connections, and if it's more of a relationship or a transaction, you know, like, oh, he's paying my rent, so I'll sleep with him, right? Like a transaction, I guess. Or is it like, does she see that as a relationship? And I also wanted to know more about like LGBTQ communities in Accra, like if it's the same kind of setup, I guess, if one person is paying for the other one to live, I guess, and how things are different between same-sex couples. Yeah.
I know I would have loved to hear from like the soccer player's wife and like get that perspective on it, and like how she feels about like it being monogamous, but like only because he's poor, and like so is she. So like I would have loved to hear that story.
Like, would she be offended if she heard him say that?
Yeah.
bro. In the beginning, he was like, he was saying, "Oh yeah, no, I don't cheat because you know I understand her. Like we come from like different backgrounds or something." I'm just like, what? Like, you understand her? No, you don't. That was just funny to me, to be honest. Um, but one thing I would like to, I guess, know more about is how kind of kids are affected by like these kind of relationship, right? Because you know, kids here like they have a mom and a dad, like for the most part, right? They have a mom and a dad, or you know, dads or moms. Um, like how does that affect their kid if their dads have to like, you know, consistently kind of distribute their attention? Because I feel like kids need like love and support, you know, like constantly growing up, or else they kind of look for that love and support in other things. You know, I think I did a research one time how people who don't grow up with love and support, they kind of look for in like gangs or like, you know, just anything negative, and kind of like growing sideways. So I just really want to like learn more about, you know, what happens to the kids, like how does this affect them?
Yeah, that's a good point too, because who I think it was the priest, he had said he had like 43 other siblings or
Yeah.
something like that, right? Like his dad had a lot of different moms of his kids, right? And
Yeah,
I'm like, how does a family dynamic look? You know, are
yeah.
they all living together? Probably not. Are they all like, does he know all of his siblings? Do they have like, I don't know. I wonder what the family dynamic is and how well they all know each other, maybe. Yeah. Or even if they consider each other family. So, anything else?
Yeah, yeah. When you said that number, it kind of makes me think like, is it hard like meeting people that you're not related to? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah,
how
that's
does
true.
that work? Like, yeah,
Probably just run into somebody and you don't even realize if they're like your sister, your brother.
yeah, it's a problem.
Like, oh, that's your dad
Yeah, it makes it
too.
hard
Good
to
to
date and
know.
stuff too. Like,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. All right. And so then the last question, how does what you've learned so far in class help you make sense of what you've already learned? So I said how we learned about how boys are raised to be hypersexual, right? That's very much a theme in this documentary.
yeah.
And how girls are brought up to just be like weaker and less capable of taking care of themselves. And they're supposed to be interested in guys, but they're not really supposed to be too aggressive with pursuing their, it's like, let the man come to you, you know. That I think that was the most recent module that we went over, how boys and girls are brought up to believe that's kind of how they're supposed to act, right? Um,
Mm.
that kind of made sense with what the host was getting at with talking to all these different people. And then also how religion can play a part of just like how girls and guys think that they're supposed to act. So the priest was saying, um, God will give a woman to a man so that he can respect her, and the woman's purpose is to be valuable and find love and security, which is kind of, you know, assigning a role to them. And that's something else that I think we kind of covered in class, like assigned gender roles and expectations of males and females, kind of based on religion and upbringing also. Yeah, that's what I said.
Yeah, and how they perform their gender too. One thing I learned was, you know, here, at least we're like pretty modern, progressive. We see gender like non-binary. It's like a scale, right? You can see you have masculine and like feminine. Like you can be masculine, have a little feminine. You can be feminine and a little masculine, right? It's not as black and white. But in this culture, like it is like pretty black and white. Like men are the breadwinner. They take care of the woman. You know, they do the work while women stay at home, cooking, taking care of the kids and all that. So they really perform their genders like, you know, in that black and white kind of sense.
Mhm.
Yeah, there wasn't much gray area in their
Mhm.
culture.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, I think something the professor was talking about, she was saying these gender roles don't leave a lot of room for fluidity, right? So, like how Carlos, you were saying, some girls are also a little masculine, some guys are a little feminine, right? And that's like the fluidity part of it. Like it's a range, it's a scale. It's not one or two set things. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else, guys? That was the last question. I think I kind of covered stuff for you guys. I may have talked a little much, but
Yeah. No, it's okay. You like guided this, you know,
Yeah, we covered
conversation.
all
It
the
was nice.
important stuff.
cool. All right. Well, that was our discussion then.